Because of the automobile, we have begun to see the city as like a very individualistic place. And in reality, it is a very collective space. Having studied urban mobility at such a granular level teaches me the importance of what solidarity bonds in terms of making women comfortable inside of spaces that are not crafted for them. So I have interests in Latin American cities, but I mainly focus on Quito due to I am both Ecuadorian, so that's where I kind of grew up spending a lot of my childhood in Quito. And I grew up in Houston, Texas, where everybody moves around by an automobile. And it's a very, what we would call a car-centric urban environment. In contrast, in Quito, I would have to get on a bus, or I would have to take a form of bus rapid transit. So these were very differing mobility experiences. And so from that, I have always had more of an interest in trying to understand how cities are designed, how they're designed for people versus how they're designed for automobiles. So at the time when I started studying urban mobility transformations in Quito, I began, like most ethnographers would, which is by following the research. So I got on a bicycle and started cycling in Quito as part of my ethnographic participation. And so what I did, however, was discover what that lived experience is like, which is having a lot of cars all around me all of the time, feeling pretty insecure, and not really knowing how the patterns of traffic move as a person who is, just becoming familiarized again with that particular urban setting. I found this one group, Carishina en Bici. It's a feminist bicycle collective. It translates from Quechua as Bad Housewives That Cycle. They have an urban cycling school where they teach other women everything that's starting from the body. What are good practices for taking care of yourself so you have enough energy to be on a bicycle? How do you actually fix a flat tire? How do you also know how to defend yourself? What I started to gather out of all of these years of doing this is that everything becomes about being in pairs, having solidarity with who you're with in order to promote safety. One of the main reasons that I also started cycling in Quito beyond my research was also because to me it felt tremendously safer than being squished on a public bus where there was the looming threat of some form of gendered assault or violence. In Ecuador specifically, as in most Latin American countries, gendered violence is a huge topic. I focus on agency and not necessarily the fear, and so maybe focusing on the tactics of in the strategies of what women do to protect themselves becomes equally an important story that needs to be visualized. That's sort of where I think that the work of groups like the Carishinas become really important. So for example, with the Carishinas, beyond sort of my ethnographic engagement with them, I've worked with them to understand how cycling infrastructure is used from their perspective as a woman, thinking more about what that actual material infrastructure possibly can contribute to improving the quality of cycling in Quito, but also enhancing or attracting more women to cycles. So it's gone from a research question that's formed obviously a much more meaningful part of my life there that is an important element of who I am. So in many ways it allowed me to become closer to Ecuador through developing real relationships there. It's important to forge social bonds, and those are our largest protection mechanisms inside of cities that continue to be very unequal places where discrimination continues to exist.